Hi everyone, welcome back to my setting. Hope all of you are spending this isolation in pleasant company, catching up on your favorite TV shows, books, video games, whatever that may be. Today I'm coming back to Wheel of Time and I will be covering chapters 16 to 25. So let's see where we left off, shall we? Last time we talked to Rand, or rather talked about Rand. He was in Camelin. So he is in Royal Palace in Camelin, and Bashir is presenting him four of the most powerful nobles of Endor. Lady Dylan, Lord Abel, Lady Lorien, and Lord Luan. And all this time he is following Moraine's advice on appearing regal and just in general playing the game. He is trying to keep it simple with them because they are noticeably nervous around him. So he tries to present to them in simple terms that what he wants, what he wishes, is to make Elaine Trakand become the ruler, the heir to the Lion Throne, and he wants to still, the four of these nobles still think he has some kind of hidden agenda, and they also speak about Dylan, who is actually next in line after Elaine. So that's enough for Rand, and he breaks the meeting. But something has been bothering him during the meeting because he's been getting really weird looks. So he invites one of the nobles, Lady Dylan, aside to ask her, "Well, lady, why have you been side-eyeing me so much and just watching me strangely?" She tells him that he looks like Tigraine, daughter heir of a noble house that disappeared 25 years ago, I think. Turns out, yes, that's Rand's mother, and the story checks out. What happens next is actually very unexpected. Not because of what happens, but how Rand reacts, for me at least. So the nobles leave, and Bashir announces next visitor. And it is a visitor from Samael, of all people. And this visitor comes in, and there's clearly something wrong with him. He presents Samael's message, which is a message of truce. He goes about this whole spiel that he will be happy to stay in Ilion and will not make a move against Rand before he has to at Tarmangaden, and the unexpected part comes in is that Rand quite swiftly decides and answers that he will not be accepting his truce. Samael will be punished, and after the messenger hears the message, he just collapsed in a fountain of blood and guts and really yucky stuff. So presumably Samael got the message. So Rand is kind of understandably sick with Endor, so he leaves for Karen. And the whole bond with Alana keeps tugging at him in the background, so he wishes to escape that as well. Avienda wants to accompany him, so he uses a gateway and goes to the Sun Palace. And as soon as he appears there, he is surrounded by the usual group of Aiel and guards, and Avienda leaves him as quickly as she accompanied him. And he wishes to see either Berlain or Ruark, whoever is nearby. So they find him. There is a scene when they walk to the Ruark's office, I guess, if you can call it like that. They walk past a group of women practicing the sword, and they are visibly inspired by Maidens of the Spear, they're not Aiel. And Aiel themselves are offended over this because these women claim to follow Giteo, and I'm still not sure if they're offended at their improper use of Giteo or just the fact they're trying to repurpose something that's an Aiel thing. Not too sure about that. Rand, on the other hand, thinks that this might be a good thing because the Chiron people were kind of under the boot lately, so this might be a thing that could bridge the gap between their vastly different cultures, maybe. So they arrive at Ruark's place, and Rand asks for a report, and both things are as well as they can be, I suppose. Carolyn de Modred and what is the other guy's name? Toram. They're still gathering people for a rebellion, and but locals are understandably tired of war, and some Andorans apparently have joined, and Shaido are still in Kingslash Dagger. They seem to be settling there, which is not a welcome news. And there's some rumors about fighting in Shara, which is apparently highly unusual for that part of the world. I don't know why. But on their list of priorities, of course, with Rand's response to the messenger, Samael is number one task to defeat. And then something happens, as it usually does. A guy named Mengin, which honestly I did not remember all that much, but he's actually one of the early Aiel who accepted Rand, and I think he helped Rand to take Stone of Tyr, and he wants to speak to Dragon Reborn to Rand, and both of them, Ruark and Berlane say that Rand should talk to this guy Mengin. And turns out Mengin has killed a local for showing his tattoos of dragons. Of course, they were fake as a tattoo is. I mean, whatever, tattoos, everyone has them, right? But apparently the Aiel and this guy Mengin thought that this was honorless and disgusting, and he decided to execute the man on the spot. So Rand decides that he will hang Mengin for a murder, because this was a cold-blooded murder. The man did nothing wrong except for sporting a pair of tattoos. However potentially disrespectful they may be, he did not deserve to die. Then Rand goes to school, Adrian's school. It's a showcase of technological marvels in the Sun Palace. Some look fun but not very useful, and there are some others like what seems to be a steam engine. Don't seem to be going anywhere. There's a telescope, and that's all fine and dandy, but Rand asks for a man named Harriet Fell. And he likes Harriet Fell because he is a very unpretentious person who half of the time, if not more, seems to forget that Rand is Dragon Reborn and treats him just as a student and wants to study with him. And the reason he wants to talk to him is because he wants to ask him some questions about Dark One and his prison. And they talk about the bond between the Warder and the Aes Sedai, which is refreshing for Rand. Then Rand gets back, and Egwene asks him for his help. She wants Rand to talk to the Wise Ones and convince them that she is healthy, she has recovered, and she can return to her studies. She insists that it is in his best interest to accept this, but Rand wants tit for tat. Either Egwene tells him about Elaine and her whereabouts, or nothing gets in return. So Egwene almost tells him because of the Taviran influence, but she manages to control herself and doesn't, so Rand just sends her away. We are back in Camelin, and Avienda is accompanying Rand, but she's very distracted. And I guess this whole spat is about Rand's rather constant clashes with the maidens. Maidens want to protect him as he is sort of. They're treating him like a son, all of them, because he is the only son of maiden that actually returned to them. So they understand that he is Dragon Reborn, but that's not what's important to them. They want to protect him even over his wishes. Fun thing happens, which is Ogier appear. They pay a visit. So Rand is sitting about filling his pipe, and then a servant barges in and says that 3 Ogier have arrived at the palace. And like anywhere else, Ogier are a rare sight in Endor. So of course Rand decides to go and meet them, and he recognizes them as Haman, who is a teacher of our dearly beloved Loyal, and Kovril and Aerith. It's Aerith. And they are looking, of course, for Loyal. Apparently, we get a confirmation that Loyal is too young to be allowed outside, capital O outside, for this long. We also find out that he's been gone for 5 years, and apparently more than 5 years is potentially lethal. There are some Ogier that have been outside as long as 10 years, but all of them have returned, if they returned, with various stages of damage to them, physical, psychological, you name it. And Loyal's fiancée, we find out, is Aerith, one of the Ogier that visits. They are demanding to know where Loyal is. He tells them that he is in Two Rivers, safe and sound. Well, he is safe now, but he kind of doesn't tell them about the battle that ensued. But he is safe and with friends. And Rand realizes that Ogier can help him close the way gates that the Shadowspawn have been using to move groups across the land. Ogier very reluctantly agree. They go through some maps. They marvel at just how much knowledge has been lost to humans, and they are persuaded to go to Waygates, but through Shadar Logoth. And although the eldest, Elder Hamad, thinks that it's too dangerous, it is sort of the only way to get there fast. So they are ready to depart instantly. And they're in Shadar Logoth. It's spooky as always, as it always has been. And Rand feels the unseen watchers, and also Lewis Terran pops up in his mind. And well, it is and it isn't uneventful. More about that later. But they finally go through the Wade Gate, and Rand actually doesn't want to remove the keys because he thinks that the gate might be needed again sometime in the future. So he he puts a very strong, very aggressive weave on it to kill Shadowspawn. It would kill them very slowly, so next time a fade comes through, it would not be warned. prepares to travel, and they realize that someone is missing. And a person that's missing is Laia, and he orders a search. And he's very angry because, well, first of all, he remembers what happened to Matt, and before they go, he keeps hammering into everyone, even into Ogier. Don't touch anything, don't drink anything, don't eat anything, don't accept anything that might be offered to you. Pay attention. He orders a search, and they try to find Leah. More about that later. We cut the scene back to Matt. Matt is visited by his scout, Chell, or is it Shell? And he urges Matt to go and see something that, well, might be interesting. Interesting is an understatement. Matt goes to see a murder scene of a tinker's caravan. Dead everywhere, no survivors, and there is this very nasty painted on message for Rand, written in blood: "Tell the Dragon Reborn." And Matt tells his men to burn everything and to make a camp, even though there are still a few hours of day left. But I guess Matt instinctively is getting ready for an ambush or attack, so he wants to be prepared to begin. He's also unable to sleep that night, so he goes outside to count the constellations, and while doing this, he sees some stuff outside, and he is surrounded by a eel. They attack him, and, well, he's alone, but he manages to keep them at bay. And while investigating, he discovers that they were actually sent by Forsaken. So that's about it. And he also finds his boy, Oliver, the boy from previous chapters there, and the boy helps him with the wounds, and he sends him off. So that's about Matt. Next we have a scene with Grendel and Samuel, who are just having a bluffing match, and not much to be said about that. It's just a piss contest, essentially. Then we are back to Egwene, who is sort of bemused at with her appearance and the time she spent with the wise ones. People are now taking her for an eel woman, even though she looks not at all like an eel woman physically, her color of her eyes, her stature and everything, but oh well. She's quite pleased with herself because she is allowed to exercise in form of walking around the city, and so she spends her time trying to soak in the rumors around the city, walking around, thinking about Aes Sedai. She goes to the wise ones, warns them about Aes Sedai, because she notices a mounted party, a party of women that looked like Aes Sedai, and at least one of them was very noticeably red. So she goes to bed, and she's so tired that she doesn't actually go to Delana Riad and just dreams of her dear poor Gavin. Back at the White Tower, Emis, Soriella and the other wise ones discuss the White Tower. Egwene gives some information, but not all that much. Egwene witnesses Gavin raging against Rand, and Gavin wants to be her warder. At least that's what he tells her, and they confess love to each other and la-di-da. Then Serene and some other Aes Sedai are discussing rumors about a green Aes Sedai that might be helping Rand. So is it Moraine or not? Is Moraine dead or not? They still are unconfirmed about that. And if Rand doesn't go willingly to the tower with them, they have a plan that might relate to channeling all the time. And there are also other Aes Sedai who will be arrived at the sea secretly. And that's about it as far as the recap is. And now on to the questions. So, Samael sends a messenger, and messenger is quite obviously under some really nasty weaving, and Samael is offering truce until the last battle, or the return of the Dark One, and he makes a prediction that in the end only Rand and Samael will remain. My question is Samael too full of himself, or is he really that capable? I don't think power-wise, I think in maneuvering people and politics-wise, we know that he is very crafty. He is very savvy when it comes to handling people and groups. I just don't think he is powerful enough to withstand a full-scale attack. Is he a good leader, or he is just a good diplomat? Question number 2. Well, I guess I hurried last time and said that Rand is better at keeping Lewis Terran at bay. Maybe I should rephrase that. He is certainly better at separating whose thoughts are whose, but I wouldn't say he has it under control. And because he has Lewis Terran's dreams for the first time. My question is, could Rand enter Lewis Terran's dreams physically? Could he enter Terran Andriod inside Lewis Terran's dreams? Or am I understanding it all incorrectly and there's no difference since, Rand is his reincarnation, so I'm just curious whether we'll ever meet Lewis Terran outside Eye of the World prologue. Probably not, but it's a thought that I had. On a lighter note, Loyal got engaged, so I wonder if the engagement period before marriage is long by human metrics as well. Maybe it's like 50 years in Ogier time. It's normal for engagement to last before the wedding. Another question, which is I guess a question at large about Wheel of Time world. Are map makers not an established honored craftsman in Wheel of Time? I understand that Aiel don't use maps. That makes sense. So they are nomadic people, they have a rich oral tradition, and they move on a relatively limited plot of land. But what about the rest? Especially with the cyclical nature of the world and various cataclysms that befall it, surely maps might not be only useful on day-to-day basis for traveling and such, but surely they could be useful for retaining the lost knowledge before the last cataclysm. I understand that if you unearth an old map and you have names of places potentially in a language that makes no sense at all, it's unusable, but it doesn't have to be. After learning about his mother's lineage, and by extension his own, Rand follows Moraine's teaching in dealing with nobles, and he wishes for another figure like her, an Aes Sedai that he can trust, that will not betray his interest, and yet he knows that he has no one else to confide in, Aes Sedai wise. So he still sees Egwene and Elaine and Nynaeve as his allies. Even after getting burned by Alana, I'm glad that he still believes in his friends. Even though they are who they are, they're Aes Sedai. But he does have a small fight with Egwene, but he does label her as other, meaning one of them, one of Aes Sedai. But I don't think he has let her go yet. I think he still considers her a close ally. I think, if not a friend. Also, something to lighten the mood. I really like a quote about Nynaeve. I think it illustrates her comical lack of tact quite well. Would Nynaeve never learn that simple civility sometimes won when honesty would surely lose? It's a quote from a situation where Elaine and Nynaeve negotiate with their elders, and it's a situation where some tact from Nynaeve might have helped their situation, but Nynaeve made it worse. Another thing that I liked, it's a grim thing, but it's a thing that I liked. So Rand did almost forget about the hanging, but he reminds me of the Stark family from Song of Ice and Fire, and their insistence on carrying out executions themselves. He, of course, is not carrying out an execution himself, and he does not intend to be present in every single one of them, but he understands the burden of such thing, and since he ordered the man to be hanged by himself, he will oversee it as well. And on a lighter note, another thing that I really liked is more Ogier. Funnily enough, not even Ogier women are immune to skirt smoothing by Robert Jordan. And I also really liked a line, saving a friend's life is not betraying him, in relation to telling the Ogier elders about the whereabouts of Loyal. It's a short, simple sentence, but it has a lot of meaning. And there is a passage that I wanted to actually read out loud, because I think it demonstrates the evocative nature of Jordan's prose that tends to shine on and on. So we return to Shadar Logoth, and it is probably a favorite section of the book so far, and despite it not being the first time we go there, or perhaps because it's not the first time, and because Rand's perspective has shifted, he has changed as a character. So, a golden sun more than halfway to its zenith roasted the ruins of greatness. Here and there, a huge intact dome toppled a pale marble palace, but more were whole than not, and most often only a curved and broken fragment remained. Long columned walks ran to towers as tall as anything Karen had ever dreamed of, and to towers ending jaggedly. Everywhere roofs had fallen in, bricks and stone fanned across fractured paving stones from collapsed buildings and walls. Shattered fountains and broken monuments decorated every intersection. Stunted trees, dying in a drought, dotted great hills of rubble. Dead weeds lined cracks in streets and buildings. Nothing moved, not a bird, not a rat, not a breeze. Silence shrouded Shadar Logoth. Shadar Logoth, where the shadow waits. Powerful stuff. And lastly, my last positive thing that I liked is Matt. Matt is not a thing, he's a character. And he's a character that really shines when he is away from Rand. That's not to say that he gets overshadowed by Dragon Reborn. Everyone gets overshadowed by Dragon Reborn. But his traits really shine because he is resourceful and he has this great problem-solving ability, and all of it makes for some engaging scenes. What I didn't like. This might be, well, not controversial. It's all subjective. Everything that I say is subjective. But here it goes. I think that dedicating time to explore the past of Rand's mother seems a bit redundant from a storytelling perspective. We've had several instances of Rand learning of his parents, and we had strong hints in the first book when his father was ill, and we had some reveals in his time in the Aiel Wastes, and now we had them again, and about his mother. And I don't think it adds anything. It doesn't add to Rand as a person. He needs to move forward. We need to move forward. He's already stuck in the past with the voice of Louis Stern in his head. I think he should form new memories, new connections, and these new experiences should be his anchor to the present, and spending time learning about a person he will never meet and a person he already knows about. From a storytelling standpoint, I don't think it adds anything. But that's just me, especially at this point. But that's about the only thing that I didn't like. Let's go to predictions.
Well, it's only a guess, but it's all I have to go on.
Predictions. Well, Rand will get attacked or ambushed. I'm 100% sure about that. And it's not a question of if, but when and who. It's either children or Forsaken. Forsaken might be an obvious, so I might go with them, but something tells me that it's too obvious, so it might be children. I don't know. What do you think? Thank you for watching as always, and see you next time. Bye bye.